Hello everybody, welcome back to the channel. We're going to do a quick review of the Curtis Large F3. But before we get into it, please like and subscribe. Please follow the Instagram and like the Facebook page. So this is one that I wanted for a long time. I've wanted for the collection and just in general. I've always found their designs to be interesting, intriguing, and aesthetically pleasing from afar. This is the first time I've handled one. And here are my thoughts. Obviously, you can tell off the bat, it has good action. But let's do some quick size comparisons between two well-known makers, too, kind of in the same realm. So you can kind of see that it is a little bit larger than your XM18 3.5 inch, and same thing with your Strider S&G. That way you can kind of get the overall look and length of these two. And then some more well-known or more readily available knives here. The Benchmade 940, and then the Spyderco Shaman. That way you can kind of get an idea of length, height, all of that stuff. Now, I would kind of put Curtis in style and feel as somewhere in between a Strider and a Hinderer. It has very similar shapes to both. It has very similar ergonomics to both. Same kind of fit and finish to a degree. I would say both Hinderer and Strider are actually overall better on the fit and finish aspect than Curtis is. Curtis is definitely like a this is rough but functional kind of feel to it. Nothing like painful rough, if that makes sense. Like things are knocked down, things are comfortable, but overall, this is kind of like a Spanto. There's a little bit of a spear point tanto going on here. This might be hard to tell. You can kind of maybe see it right here slightly. You might be able to see it like up here slightly, but it is very slicey, by the way. This is a hollow grind, really honestly pretty thin behind the edge, with a decent sized backing, or a decent sized I cannot not think of that. You know, sometimes it just happens where a word isn't quite it just isn't making it. But the spine, there we go. This with a really decent sized thickness on the spine, about the same thickness as your Hinderer XM18. So nothing too extraordinary. There's a tiny bit of lock stick. It's gotten better and better as I have used it and carried it. We are pretty close to centered. So I realize we're not off center. So why does it look off center? Well, that's the one thing I think that Hinderer and Strider clearly have over Curtis. Don't get me wrong, I love the design. I like the scales, the flaming, the gear-like backspacer and the jimping and just the overall look of this. But if you notice right here, this grind here is different than this one. This grind is different than this one. So this grind starts here. This grind starts here. So there is a grind here, grind here. There's about a ½ inch difference between this side and that side. This side starts sooner than this side. This side goes deeper. It goes farther down than this side. And then that causes, I don't know if you can tell, but that causes this right here to be different. You can kind of tell it almost kind of curves this way slightly. And that way, that's why it looks off center. It's this spine, this whole blade is not off center, but it does look off center here because it's actually the grind is off. And so that was kind of disappointing to me. When I got a hold of this, I was looking forward to it. Overall, I love everything about it but that, and my OCD kicks in like none other. When I was looking at that, I was like, well, dang, that is off, and it's noticeably off. So that kind of stinks. So if you're OCD, like really OCD, and things like that bother you, you might want to skip out on a Curtis, or you may want to actually like handle one in person before purchasing. That way you're not wildly disappointed. I'm not necessarily disappointed, and overall I do like it. I do carry it. I do like the clip. It is unique, it's fun, and it's very useful. It is thicker because it did so many cutouts. That way you didn't have issues with it bending, which I do appreciate. The pivot is cool. It's large and in charge. It does the job. Yeah, I mean, there's nothing else I have to say with that. There is an over travel stop. That mainly is the pivot, actually. The pivot is large and does the job. Now here's the thing about the pivot. It is proprietary. You can't really get at it. I mean, you could. You would kind of want to make a tool that was soft, but in the Philip kind of style, but you want it flat. You don't want it to have a point to it at all, and you can get into it that way, or you can do a spanner bit from either side, and that would work too. You just have to make sure you get the right width on the spanner bit. So that's one downfall. It does again have great action overall. Here's one thing that is, so I don't carry anything in my pocket that I have a knife with. I just don't do that. But if you do, that flipper, that's pretty massive. And I'm serious about that. So like XM18, look at that. The flipper here on the XM18 looks tiny compared to it. Let's see, do I have anything else I can compare it to? What has a large flipper? I know what has a large flipper that will also seem small. Is the Full Track. Full Track, most people would complain about that flipper. Yeah, this is much larger. It's actually pretty noticeable. Like it, that is one thing I would say a lot of people would have a problem with. Not everybody, and that's okay. And that is what it is. But I do have to say, if you do not like huge flippers, And I'm not talking about penguins or anything like that. I'm talking about this kind of. It's gonna poke and stab and hit anything else in your pocket. Again, though his good ergonomics, really good ergonomics, and a great slicer. So performance is great, like it does well, and action is great. And the finishes are great. The overall style, the whole look is good. The execute, the fit and finish, quality wise, and like execution of like the fine details is where it's lacking. That's just how it is. That's just kind of thing. If you don't care about the super fine details, and even this, I would even consider this not to be a fine detail. I would say that should be a standard. Your grinds should be symmetrical, not asymmetrical. It's just they should match up on both sides. Your knife should not look off center because your grinds are off. Simple. That's the only really nitpick I have. Otherwise, I really do like the Curtis. I really do like this F3. I would honestly recommend it. So anybody that's not like hung up on the fact that the grinds might not be fully symmetrical, that's not a thing you have to have. I mean, you'd rather have it, but you don't have to have it. Then honestly, I would say I would recommend this to you. Now, it is in the same ballpark as Hinderers and Striders when it comes to price tag. They are around the $450 plus range, depending on the size, the model, and how custom it is, and when you get it from, where you get it from, whether it's secondary or not. But regardless, I just want you to be aware that some things might not be up to your standards if you're used to Striders or Hinderers or Chris Reeves or Shirgora or something like that. Or Koenigs. If you're used to that, or Holtz, but like, or if you're used to like Grimsmo's, like that quality on all of those brands is not here. It's just not, and that's something that Curtis isn't necessarily like has to have. That's not the point. His point is to have users, to have high quality tank knives that can take a beating, that look nice, but aren't perfect. Kind of a rough, users, something that you would actually want to use, that you wouldn't feel bad using, but it's high quality at the same time, if that makes sense. But yes, I would recommend it to the person that wouldn't be completely consumed by their OCD by some things like the grind lines and whatnot not quite matching up. I mean, to me, there's so much potential here that I think they're missing out quite a bit, honestly. But that's really all I have for this video. Just honest thoughts on the reality of it. And here's the thing, is this is not the only Curtis I have seen held or noticed stuff like this with. It seems relatively consistent throughout his line. Something isn't quite right with everyone, and it's the kind of thing is like, it's not unheard of. It's not it's kind of par for the course. There's going to be something that's not quite up to most people's standards, and that's just what it is. But again, I would recommend Curtis, just as long as you're not going to be distraught over something being off, whether it's the grinds or whether if it's something else not quite being finished all the way. But either way, that's going to be it for this one. Please, again, subscribe, like the video, follow the Instagram, and like the Facebook page, and I'll see you guys in the next one.